Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday today, a surprise Lessons in Leadership. Normally we're on Friday, but tomorrow, of course, is Good Friday. So it is Thursday today. It's 12 noon. It is episode 22 of Lessons in Leadership. And a very warm welcome to you. My name's Mary Gregory, and I'm absolutely delighted and a little starstruck, actually, to welcome Sue Knight here today. Who is an NLP master and author of the amazing book NLP at Work, which I'm sure many people watching will be familiar with this. It's in its fourth edition now. But Sue, you and I go back quite a long way, don't we?
A long way. Just talks about my age, really, doesn't it, when you say
Well, my age too as well. But
you were a toddler when I met you.
Yeah, well, you were only about 16 yourself, weren't you? Anyway, we would go back to the 90s, actually, when you were a key figure for me because I attended your introduction to NLP, actually, and then went on to do the full caboodle with you.
The full caboodle.
The full caboodle, Sue, yes. And for me, it was like one of those moments where it was a light bulb moment of, this is fantastic because it helps me put words and structures to some of the things I'm trying to say here. And I think that's what NLP offers many of us is a way of expressing what we're trying to say, but also giving us access to some really powerful tools and techniques. So very warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And it's a real pleasure. And I'm going to kick off by just inviting you to share a bit about your journey of what got you into NLP and what got you, because I think you've so specialized in NLP, so focused on it, and you do it beautifully. You personify how to be excellent in this.
What way do you think that?
In what way? Oh God, you're starting to practice it on me already. I'm meant to be interviewing you, Sue, not the other way around. So I tell you why I think you practice it from an excellent perspective is you come very much from self first. So having managed your own self, been on your own journey and from the inside out, and it comes very intuitively and very naturally. And that's what I've always appreciated about your trainings as well, is it's not like a tight agenda of, and now we're going to do this and now we're going to do that. It's been very organic. So I think that's what you personify in terms of excellence.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about your journey of how you got to where you are.
I was just actually thinking, should I start with the past or the present, actually?
Your choice.
Because I think, the heading is leadership. And I thought about that after you asked me to do this. And I was thinking about, people that I have met, some people I've met recently, and how they talk about their past. And, so for example, one was a date I went on, and the guy was intent on telling me about his past and what he'd done. And I thought, I'm much more interested in the present and how you are here and now.
Yes.
And I think some people trade on the past, and the past is past, in a way. And it's really about how we are in the moment. I believe that really is important and that matters. So,
Wow.
I'm a different person today than I was back then. I mean, obviously there are things that were the same when I met you. A lot's changed, of course, in the world at the moment.
Yes. So what is it about the present? What works for you about the present that makes that an area to focus on rather than the past?
Well, let's say if somebody's dwelling on what they have done, but they're not engaging in the moment, they're not connecting in the moment, then in a sense, and if that's important, that connecting in the moment. So for example, people can talk a lot about stuff, but they don't necessarily be curious about the other, They don't. So it's kind of the norm for people to tell rather than to ask questions, for example.
Yes.
And I think that's better. So there's things like that there are very particular things in the present that for me are important. That I don't find as frequently as I would wish in some circumstances.
Yes, yes. I really love that, because actually, in terms of being a leader, it is about how you engage with others and how you relate to them. And that all takes place in the present. It doesn't take place back then.
And you must have, you've touched on this in your book, haven't you?
Yes.
So like
Yes.
how to be ego-less.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that's such a profound thing.
Yes, and that can only take place when we're fully present, really.
Exactly. Yes,
when we get over ourselves.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, I think you really, with that, really, we say with NLP that the kind of what we're looking for is the difference that makes a difference. What's the thing that will be pivotal in the context of what people? And I was thinking, wow, finding a way to, explore how we are with ego and without ego. That's just a difference that makes a difference. So you've hit on a nugget there, Mary.
I'm glad you think so. And I wish I could be without ego all the time, but I can't. It's like we are human beings, so we're ego driven in many ways. But yes, there are certainly ways of transcending it and being in the present.
I mean, if you were, you wouldn't be human. Yeah.
No.
And you wouldn't have that connection with people because, it's the fact that you're working with that yourself, I would say.
Yes.
That enables people to identify with what you're saying and what you're offering.
Yes, completely. And being in that present moment is about endeavoring to be egoless. And I also agree that that's, for me as a leader, and I suppose I'm touting some of my leadership beliefs here, is when we have a choice. We things happen here and now, don't they? They didn't happen last week, and they're not going to happen next week. They're going to happen in the here and now. And as a leader, that's where we make choices.
Yeah, I believe everybody's a leader. So everybody,
yes,
right now, you could say to yourself, how are you a leader? Maybe not everybody. I mean, the word means many different things.
Yes.
But everybody is this and has it. And that's more important today, I believe, than ever before, because some of the people in power as leaders are shit, so.
I love your frankness. And I'm trying to agree.
And so the opportunity is, and people are taking things into their own hands, not always in necessarily the most ecological way, but nevertheless, they are. So anybody listening, you could say, how am I a leader? And there's really pivotal things, I believe, in what that means and what's the effect of that.
Yeah. And, there is something about the opportunity of what's happened in the last year or so, and there's been lots of criticism here in the UK to our government leadership, for sure, which completely is ego driven in so many different ways, because so much on the defensive all the time. But I'm curious about what or how can people take the reins more, because I think there have been periods, certainly I've experienced it, I know other people in my network have experienced it, feeling really powerless about what to do in these circumstances. So what would you say about ways that we could take the reins and be more powerful in our own leadership?
Do you?
Do I take the reins? Well, I think my belief is around do whatever you can do for yourself and focus on the things that you can have an influence or control over. That is one way of regaining power. So, for example, running these interviews and doing them weekly is one way that I've wanted to regain a bit of feeling like I'm a leader and making a difference.
Well, you've taken.
I just wondered what your views are.
What my views?
Yeah. Tell me about what you think.
I think there's some it all depends on what we mean by the term.
Yes.
I think everybody has this opportunity to choose the effect they have on themselves and on the world. And I think there's things been coming to mind, whatever the definition of leader is, there's been really key things. One is being present, showing up 100%.
Yeah.
Not scripted, not prepared always, because we don't know what life's going to throw at us, and being able to handle that.
Yeah.
Not fitting into a formulaic pattern of things, being curious, like, so somebody asking questions. It isn't about telling people everything.
Yes.
About using words like "and" rather than "but."
Yes.
It's
Makes a
less
huge
prepared.
difference. Yeah.
It's about how do we be together in community, and is a really fundamental word in that. And being
Yes.
prepared to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things I think are really, really huge, actually, and
Yes.
that connect with people and that have an influence. We always have an influence, but it's a question of whether it's the influence that we wish to have.
Yes, that's a good insight, actually. We always have an influence. Is it the influence that we want? And like, we're always creating our vision. Is it the vision that we want? So that's why.
Yeah, it's interesting because I also think it's every moment's a new beginning, and it requires new thinking and new words. I think vision's a bit hackneyed myself.
I suppose for me, it's about creating your future, that we create our future all the time.
Well,
And vision just represents being more conscious of the future that we're creating.
I just think I still come back to the present. It's, 5-year plans were ridiculous, aren't they? Visions. It's all a bit sort of old style sort of thing. Whereas how do I rock up in the present? That's very different. And be true to myself, warts and all.
Yes. Yes. Fabulous. So I want to, and that is it. I think I've learnt that pattern from you, actually. So let's change tack slightly here. When we were interacting before this conversation, you were talking about your grandchildren and how they teach you unconditional love, and you were very clear about wanting that to be out there when we post on social media, which I absolutely get. So I'm curious to ask you about, what are you learning about unconditional love from your grandchildren?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something historical, only in the sense that, like, probably last year, the year before. But I remember sitting on the trampoline with my grandkids, and my eldest granddaughter, Scarlett, just said, I think she was about 5, 6, and she said, "I love you, Grandma." And my immediate thought was, but she doesn't know what I do. I thought, isn't that incredible? She just loves me for who I am.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful, because most people know me through my work. And I mean, I think that's ego, is to be identified with something like that rather than who am I without all that stuff. And here's somebody just says, "I love you," and your skin's all crinkly, and "I love you."
Oh, I just love you. And there's something about just you is what I love. Nothing else, no labels, nothing else attached to it.
No conditions, no labels, just an expression in the moment. And I think children, in a sense, what I seek to bring to the trainings I do is for people to reconnect with that childlike quality of naive curiosity and love and truthfulness, just express the truth. My grandkids would say, so they say, usually get hold of my skin and say, "So why is your skin so stretchy?" I just think, God, there's such an honesty in that. Who would do that to me in a meeting? Might think it.
Yeah. So there's something about there's wisdom in the innocence of it, really, as well. That they will ask the questions other people wouldn't necessarily ask.
They'll just speak from the essence of who they are. I think that's just delightful, and there's a magic in that as well.
Yeah. So it's an unconditional element, and the reason I'm honed in on this is I'm curious about love and being a leader, and what that's about, because personally I feel the difference leaders can make is by coming from love rather than fear. Because
I do admire you bringing your conversations back on track all the time, Mary. You must be healthy.
No, I'm really curious. So fear is when our ego is playing. And I want to just say hello to Elaine, who has said hello. This is wonderful and very moving. So obviously what we're doing right now, Sue, is working for Elaine. And we've got some other people watching as well. So while I have a quick interlude, I'm just going to say, if you're watching, please do make your comments or ask questions of Sue while she's here. It would be lovely to hear from you. And do remember to pop your name up, because we are on StreamYard and we need to see who's asking the questions. So lovely to hear from Elaine there. I've lost track now as to what I was about to say. It was about love and leadership. So I have it that when we're fear-based, that's when our ego kicks in, because it's defensive. It's more about making sure I'm okay and blah de blah. And how, as a leader, what I'm always curious about is how can we make sure we.
Can I add to that? I think that whenever we are in a whenever we must have something or got to have, supposing, and I understand that, but supposing you think, well, I've got to earn some money to pay for the mortgage, or I've got to do this, or I must do that, we lose influence in that moment. We detract, we dilute who we are.
Yes.
I mean, that's a challenge. It's like, you have got those things. So how do you, the ideal, I believe, is to be able to, this is kind of controversial, but it would be better to take give up everything, and go live in the Himalayas, for example, if having the things that you have put you in that must-have state. I mean, this is such a challenge.
Yes.
But that's the extreme in a sense. It's like how to let go of the got to have, because they'll dominate and take over, who we are. I recognize myself.
Yes. And it's the fear that drives that, the musts, the gots, the shoulds, which actually, connecting back to what you're saying at the beginning, those are past-based. That comes from our past, that I should do this.
Well, that's inherited from somebody else, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
So
it's like how to be, and so in the sense of being fully present, it's letting go of the past and the future and saying, I'm just engaged, I'm being here. If there's something going on and you haven't managed it, it's going to take away. And I'm very conscious there's something that is going on for me in life right now, that I have to think, and it's something that kind of concerns me about, somebody in my family. And it's like, how do I know that's happening and be present at the same time? Rather than it be one or the other, how can I be both present and have this concern and know how to handle that, for example?
Yes, yes. And how do you do that then, Sue?
Yeah, I've thought about that. I was actually thinking about writing how to rise above the rock and the hard place to be on the top of the mountain. I think believing in so there can be something in my life that isn't the way I'd wish it to be, and I can be fully present, and I can appreciate and love the things that I love in life. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can exist together. So this and is so significant, so important to recognize things. So many people think it's got to be this or that, but actually the creativity comes from it's both. And starting with that belief, and then going, okay, so if I accept that's the case, I don't have to forfeit myself to, dilute my attention to something else all the time.
Yes.
That's key, holding that belief and going, so how can it be and? And then I find what happens is I kind of lift myself above what's happening then.
Yes, yes. So you're able to keep yourself. Is it a separation or is it still integrated?
Well, it's both really. So that's an either or, isn't it? It's how to be.
It's interesting. Yeah.
So it's interesting how to be separated, like to be able to take the overview and be present and connected as well. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't be one or the other.
Yeah.
So that's been very, very, sort of present in my just exploring very recently.
Yes, yes. Oh, this is blowing my mind, this conversation. It's wonderful. I love it. Now, what am I going to ask next?
I'm learning.
Sorry?
I'm learning from
You're learning. Yeah. Well, I think, learning happens in conversations, doesn't it? Which is why I started this. They call it a vodcast now. Off every week.
I have a few date conversations where it doesn't go like that.
Oh, maybe this is about leadership. Maybe we do another one of these about dating. You can come round back and give us your dating tips. So what I was going to ask was about, so I was trying to move into the whole thing about love, because I have a thing around, to be effective as a leader, you really need to come from love rather than fear. And some of the things you're talking about, to be loving is about being present in the moment.
Yes, it's accepting. It's accepting where we are in the moment and going, yeah, this is how it is. And it's like saying, it's an expression I've used a lot on programs recently to people who go, well, I'm not okay, my state's not okay. And you go, it's okay to be not okay.
Yes.
You don't have to be okay in the traditional sense all the time. It's really okay to be not okay. And there's a great permission and a truth in that.
Yes.
That is liberating, absolutely liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not being okay doesn't mean to say you can't be effective, does it? You can still be loving and giving while still not feeling okay at that same time. It's that integration piece again.
You could be very inward looking in that moment. So I don't think you have to be all those things. You could be just like reflective. That may be what's important and true in the moment.
Yes.
It's like not have to be. I've not got to be outgoing, and I've not got to be this or that or the other.
Yes.
The consequence, I think, usually is of that way of thinking is a fun way of being. It's not always fun, but it can be a state of amusement, and a state of love and connecting with the whole, connecting with the world, connecting community.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I'm kind of going into, this is just so incredible. It is blowing my mind. And I'm kind of also conscious that I want to ask you a question, which is going to be past based, because this is Lessons in Leadership. And I do ask all my guests this question. Get back to Lessons in Leadership. And so I'd like...
That's like when I run some programs, I can be very provocative in my style, and I teach provocative, and I am being provocative, in sessions. And then somebody might say, "Can you give us a demonstration of provocative?" And you think, I am, but if they don't see it, then that's very. So back to Lessons in Leadership.
Absolutely. Well, no, all of this is Lessons in Leadership. So I want to acknowledge that, and you've shared some really profound stuff today, which is just wonderful. But I also want to ask you, and it's a past-based question, and what I want to ask you is about a time where it was like a turning point moment for you that shifted you in some way, and to such a degree that it still affects how you show up today. So I can share about mine was the end of my marriage, which really got me present to how invaluable taking personal responsibility is. And it's something that's in my language. I'm always saying to people, what can you be responsible for? I ask myself, what can I be responsible for? It shifted me. So I just wondered,
end of marriage is usually a good shifting moment, isn't it?
It is certainly a good shifting moment.
I don't recommend that necessarily as a way for everybody to find the truth. Oh, crikey. A moment. There's been many.
I bet there's been many. That's the thing, is we do all have many, but I'm just wondering what comes to mind. If there's one that comes to mind that you'd be willing to share.
Well, what came to mind when you said that, because you talked about end of marriage, and I'm divorced, and so very single, and loving it. It's kind of reflection on an aspect of my marriage was when I'm cycling, which I do a lot of. And I used to cycle with my husband pretty well all the time. And I do love photography. And in the last year cycling, I'd think, oh, look at that view. I'll stop and take that photograph. And I think, and my first reaction was, oh, I can't, because he would not like to stop. And I realized I still had that in me, things that I would, accommodated somebody else to an extent, which I lost myself. I lost parts of myself. And it was such a thing like thinking, bugger me, I can stop and take a photograph whenever I like. And it's a simple thing. But it was, and sometimes I take a lot of photographs. I think it's partly making up in the sense of going, because I can do this. It's a very simple thing, but I can do this. It's my choice. And realizing that, I realized that it's a metaphor for many other things that I suppressed in order to accommodate. And I recognize accommodating, in a marriage, in a relationship, is important, but there's a risk of losing yourself. And I think now, I really feel like I said to you in the write-up, I'm a Scouser. Well, I think I kind of lost that aspect of me, Sue the Scouser is a real kind of particular type of, way of being. And I lost that for a while.
Yes.
So that's
back in full force now.
You can what?
I say you're back in full force now then, so it's really engaged with your whole self.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Really wonderful. And I would say, actually, for those that are watching and are watching in catch up as well, do take a look at your Facebook page, because you do share some beautiful photographs, really, really stunning. I find them very inspiring.
It is interesting, though. It's a kind of catch up going. And I still have a kind of critic, somebody saying to me, there are any snaps kind of thing. So I think it's kind of making up time.
Yes. Fabulous. Okay. So Sue, mentioning time, we are almost at the end of our time. It goes so quickly.
You mean in the session?
In our time today talking to each other. I always ask my guests at this point, what sort of parting wisdom would you like to share with people that are watching now and people that will be watching in catch up? And we also have Annie Richardson watching as well, who I love. Annie Richardson, I think you know her too. So she's doing trainings.
I can't see who's watching. This is a bit mean.
A fellow coach. Yeah, well, we've got Annie Richardson and we've got Elaine, who've just both made a comment. Annie said, "Fabulous to see and hear you both. Takes me back to Sue's workshops." Love Annie. That's lovely.
So he'll go back.
Only keep going forward. So what are you? What would be your parting words of wisdom for our viewers now and in the future?
Oh God, future. Nah, stick with the now.
We'll stick with it now, but people will be watching it in the future.
I'd say be aware of and look for opportunities to live the and.
Love that. Yeah. Live the and. That has been a theme coming through today, is the power of and.
Absolutely. So, because, it's you and I, it's us and those people who are watching now. It's, this possibility and that possibility. It's what's good in my life and what's challenging. It's just, it's all together.
Yes. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Sue. It's been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed today, and I know that our audience that have been watching today have enjoyed it too. I feel like I don't want to end it, but I'm going to have to end it because we're coming to the end of our time. And so I'm going to say to everybody, thank you to everyone today for watching myself and Sue. We really love your contribution. And next week on episode 23 of Lessons in Leadership, we have Elaine Bernstein, who is one of the most enthusiastic business owners I know. And she owns a boutique called Elaine Bernstein and designs her own clothes in that boutique. So do tune in, because she'll be telling some of her story about how she's navigated the challenges of this lockdown, of the many lockdowns we've had this year, but also how she keeps engaging and keeps her enthusiasm going in her business. Just phenomenal lady. So I look forward to interviewing Elaine next week. Otherwise, thank you all so much. And thank you, Sue. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye-bye.